Hey, I ain't gonna lie. Donnie's Big Beautiful Bill has just helped out a lot of recording artists, especially independent recording artists. And right now with this beautiful bill, there is a $150,000 tax credit that you guys can now use. So let's go ahead and talk about it.
Bolo!
All right, so a lot of you guys sent me this video from the Sync Money account on IG, and the guy is actually talking about the new Hits Act that just passed and was signed into law with the whole Big Beautiful Bill thing. So this bill is designed to help out a lot of independent musicians, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play the video for you guys real quick, and I'm gonna talk about what this bill is for and how you can use it in layman's terms, okay? So let's go ahead and play the video right now.
Congress just gave independent musicians a $150,000 tax break. The Hits Act just passed in Congress and almost nobody is talking about it. Go to the nicest studio. Go find the best producer for your project. Pay the top mixing and mastering engineers to make your project as good as it can possibly be. Everything that you spend will now be tax deductible. This is about to light a fire underneath the entire independent music economy. 91.8% of the over 4 trillion streams came from independent distributors last year, not the majors. Independent record labels and artists make up roughly 46.7% of the overall revenue in the music industry. That's almost $14.3 billion a year. And imagine even 10% of those artists taking the money that they saved on taxes and reinvesting it into the marketing and advertisement of their project. So save every receipt, studio time, hire musicians, plugins, even coffee. All these things can be deducted from your taxable income. Share this with an independent artist who needs to know about it.
All right, looks pretty cool to me. Looks really good. Now, let me kind of break this thing down for you because I got to do a little bit of research on it, but I'm not 100% clear. So if anybody else has done any research on this, please come in the comment section and please let me know. And if there is any CPAs that are watching this video, please comment and please correct me if I'm wrong with anything. But I'm not going to dive too deep in it because I have my own CPA and I was trying to get him on the phone today, but he ain't pick up. But his assistant said he's going to call me back, and that way I can kind of get a little bit more clarification. But for right now, with the knowledge that I do have, I can at least explain this, okay? So first of all, what this is something that businesses have been doing for a while. So me, I have my own businesses and I can actually deduct certain equipment and certain things that will offset my taxes. So if I want to buy a keyboard, if I want to buy a drum machine, any type of outboard gear, computers, anything for my business, my music business, that will come off of my taxes for that year. This was something that was made into a law a few years back. And then now, instead of having your equipment and stuff like that depreciate, it can come off the taxes immediately, which that helps out a lot of business owners, okay? And then plus, if I want to go into the studio, if I had certain artists coming by, if I spent money on their studio time or whatever, I could deduct that from my taxes. Now, how this works is, this is for independent musicians who do not have businesses, even though most of you guys should have businesses because you actually get more tax breaks if you have a business. But let's just say, for instance, you're an independent musician that has a job. Say, for instance, you're making $45,000, $50,000, $55,000 a year, and you spend money on studio time. Now, say, for instance, you spent in that year, and let's just throw out a crazy number. Let's just say you spent $15,000 on studio time. What you can do now is, with this new act, you can claim that $15,000 on your taxes. And then what that would do is it would bring your tax liability down. So if you made $55,000 a year, with that $15,000 that you use in recording or whatever, it will bring that down to $40,000, and that will be your tax liability. Now, how much you pay, it all just depends. That's for the CPAs and all the the really smart people out there for that. But what this does is it helps independents get their tax liability down so they can actually use that extra money to go back into the studio. Okay? That's why it's called the HITS Act. It's called Helping Independent Tracks Succeed. That's why it's called the HITS Act. Okay? Now, what I do not know is how you could use it when buying certain music equipment, which I'm pretty sure with just about everything, there's a loophole with that. And I'm not saying use the loophole, but I don't know about what he was saying about buying plugins. Now, I know there's certain ways you can kind of get around that, because let's just say, for instance, you had to bring in an engineer to your own studio. And I'm not saying do this, but let's just say hypothetically you had to pay an engineer to come into your studio to finish or complete a record. And let's just say, for instance, you needed a certain piece of gear to complete that record. And say, for instance, that piece of gear was $3,000. You really needed that piece of gear to complete this record for that engineer to use, right? And let's just say, for instance, you had to buy that piece of gear for your studio for that independent, engineer to use to complete a record that you were using, right? Y'all kind of get where I'm going with this. So that maybe could, be a way, in a sense. All right, before we go any further, if you guys are looking for anything for your studio, doesn't matter if it's a microphone, an interface, a keyboard, whatever, make sure you guys go ahead and click my link in the description and head over to Zounds.com. Zounds has a whole bunch of stuff on the site, and they have a whole bunch of stuff on the site that does not require a credit check, meaning you can order the equipment, they will send it to you, and then you can just make monthly installments on the equipment while you use it. All you would just need is a credit or debit card hooked to the account. Now, it's not everything on the site, but it is a whole bunch of stuff on the site that you guys can get right now by clicking my link in the description and heading over to Zounds.com. So go ahead, click that link in the description and get you some gear today. But for what this bill is, it's supposed to be used for recording, okay? And recording in the U.S. only. So you can't go to like Mexico or like England or something like that. You would have to use the money in the U.S. You would have to keep up with your receipts, which I tell a lot of people, just pay with your debit or credit card so you can have all that stuff there, and then itemize everything in like QuickBooks or whatever like that. So, you won't have to go through and the IRS comes back and they try to do an audit and stuff like that. But you have to do it in the U.S., and it's for recording costs. So that's why I was saying I'm not too sure about plugins, but hypothetically, if you're at your studio and you needed to complete a song and you needed a certain keyboard to complete the song, you might have to buy a certain keyboard to complete the song. I'm not saying if you can or cannot do that, but loophole. You never know how that works. But yes, the big thing about it is it can greatly help you by, deducting your tax liability. Now, just to be honest with you guys, I've been doing this for a long time because, I have a business. And so I buy a lot of equipment, especially for stuff that I show you guys. I know a lot of y'all guys are like, oh, these companies just send you a whole bunch of stuff. No, they don't. Some companies don't send me this stuff. I actually purchase this stuff, okay? And I actually, get it so I can do reviews and stuff like that. And if I like it, I keep it. If I don't like it, I send it back. So everything that I have is not given to me from every single company. I have to actually buy stuff for real. But when I do buy it, it comes off of my tax liability. And just to be honest with you, a lot of independent artists are not going to spend $150,000. That's why I was shocked that they gave it so much of a high amount. However, there are some people who do have the bread and they do spend that much money. You know, it's very, very few, but there are some. So at the end of the day, you can actually use this in a few ways. Now, I still will say, if you are an independent artist, I will say go ahead and get you a business because it gives you more tax deductions than this. And I'm not, like I said before, I'm not a CPA. I can't tell you everything because I actually have somebody that does mine. But I do know if you do have a business, doesn't matter if it's a sole proprietor, LLC, or whatever, you can get more tax deductions with that business to get your tax liability down. However, if you don't want to get your own business and you just want to just stay just a regular person and just use this to bring down your tax liability on an individual basis, that's fine. You can now do it. You now have up to $150,000 limit to do this. Okay, so when you go into a studio and they charge you $1,000, you get the receipt, or you show it on your credit card statement that you paid for it, or your debit card or whatever. You can go ahead and claim down your taxes. The drive there, you can claim that. The gas, you can claim that. The food in the studio, you can claim that. Whatever you needed. If you want to claim that, you can claim that on there, and that will get your tax liability down. So this is actually a very good thing that happened in this new bill from Brother Donnie, President Donnie. He did include that in the bill, which a lot of other stuff happened in the bill, which I'm not into politics like that, but it's a few things. But this is a very good thing for a lot of independent musicians, okay? And like I said before, there's always loopholes around everything, but you guys let me know if you have researched this bill, if anybody can research it, if you can actually buy music equipment without using maybe some loopholes to do it, okay? So this is a good thing for a lot of you musicians. If you don't understand how taxes work, please learn how this stuff works because it will greatly help you out in the long run, especially if you have a job that finances your music career. This would definitely help you out, okay? And I'm glad that they passed this HITS Act. I forgot the senator I think the senator in Tennessee was the one who introduced this bill, and a few other lawmakers got behind it, and it finally passed. And this will really help out a lot of independent musicians. So this is actually a very good thing. And that way you can kind of save a little bit of money, and your refund could be a little bit bigger too, if you know what I mean. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys learned something from it. And like I always say, peace out.